coming up in all angles. The common entrance exam left thousands behind. More problems with GSAT. Now there's PEP. Problems solved or more created. What will it take to get this right? And thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson Miller, and a very special welcome to our viewers on onespotmedia.com. Now, we are going to be joining our guests in studio for discussion, but before that, earlier this afternoon, I sat down with officials from the Ministry of Education to talk about the concerns about the results of the primary exit profile. Let's go to that.
Mixed emotions. The results of the first sitting of the primary exit profile PEP generating heated discussions since the release on Friday.
32,155 or 80% of students were placed in one of their preferred schools.
But the biggest concern, parents unable to interpret the results. Parents received a results sheet like this. Even the Jamaica Teachers Association President-elect Owen Speed called it confusing.
To the public, to the schools, that these are some scores that we arrive at. We don't know the formula that they are going to use, that they use to arrive at that.
Under the primary exit profile, students are assessed under 4 categories: beginning, developing, proficient, and highly proficient. A beginning student has limited or no evidence of the required competencies. If a student is in the developing category, he or she has shown partial evidence of required competencies. A proficient student has demonstrated adequate levels of competencies, and a highly proficient student has shown advanced competencies. The scores range from 0 to 400, as you can see in this chart. But how does the ministry place students in categories? Well, that depends on the subject area. Language arts students who score less than 264 out of 400 are categorized as beginning. Those who score between 264 and 296 are considered developing. 298 to 334 is considered as proficient, while a student who scores above 336 would be highly proficient. The stakes are higher for mathematics. A child would have to score lower than 267 to be placed in the beginning category. 269 to 302 is developing. 304 to 342 is proficient. And a child who scores 344 and above would be highly proficient in math. Now to science. Anything less than 262 would put a student in the beginning category. 265 to 298 is developing. 301 to 336 means the student is proficient in science. And if a student scores above 336, that would place him or her in the highly proficient category. The final subject, social studies. If your child is in the beginning category for social studies, it means he or she would have scored less than 253. 256 to 288 would put that child in the developing category. In order to be classified as proficient, your child would have to score between 291 to 329, and highly proficient is 332 and above.
And the various components that comprise the assessment. Regardless of these changes, the students performed well in this inaugural sitting of the primary exit profile.
But some parents insisted their children were unfairly placed. On Monday, the Education Ministry explained that if a child was not placed at a school of his or her choice, it means other higher scoring children were placed first. Such students would have been placed using the secondary placement list, otherwise called the proximity list. That is a school close to the primary school the student attended. Issues surrounding primary school leaving exams are not new. It has always been a sweat-inducing, high-stress activity. In fact, every era came with its own set of problems. Common Entrance ran its course for more than 4 decades, from 1958 to 1999. In 1974, then Education Minister Howard Cook said that only 3,000 students who sat the Common Entrance exam got to go to the schools they wanted, while the remaining 27,000 were placed in schools close to them or wherever the space was available. Some parents were livid, claiming that some schools were just not good enough for their children. Then, Grade 6 Achievement Test GSAT, replacing Common Entrance in 1999. Again, there were problems. In 2005, one Gleaner columnist wrote, "Same song, different tune," pointing out that there were problems with the equity and adequacy of GSAT, making it a rebranded version of the Common Entrance exam. And now comes PEP, the exam aimed at producing 21st century students, critical thinkers.
Children need to develop critical thinking skills. The problem, though, is that the people who are leading from the standpoint of the Ministry of Education, they don't seem to be thinking critically at all.
Kelisha Williams for All Angles.
Well, I spoke, as I said earlier this afternoon, to officials from the Ministry of Education who are unable to be on this program this evening. So let's watch a bit of that interview. Why did the ministry change the way in which the results are presented?
The change in the reporting mechanism for the primary exit profile came as a result of the requirements of the National Standards Curriculum. We are now measuring our students against certain standards, and in speaking to the standards, it takes more than just a percentage scores. We want to see how it is that the students measure up to the requirements of the National Standards Curriculum, which in fact is at the grade 7 as well. It is a part of best practices to use scale scores in reporting. The use of percentage scores will not give us enough information as to the deficiencies as well as the areas in which the students have excelled. A percentage score just gives you an overall score, while with a scale score, we're able now to see not just how it is that the students have performed, have achieved the curriculum, but as well as the different levels at which they would have achieved it.
But I can imagine parents might be looking at it and saying, okay, but what's the real difference? With a percentage, for instance, I knew that if my child scored between 0 and 40%, for instance, they were doing badly, maybe 50 to 70 is okay, that kind of thing. And now I'm seeing you're saying her score or his score is falling between this range of numbers. So what's the real difference?
The real difference is that we no longer just put out a score, overall scores, but you're able now to see the level at which your students have. So 0 to 25, what is it? What areas are they weak in? What is the cause for concern? Where do we need to target? Where the emphasis need to be placed? With the reporting system that now exists for